Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another show of Weekends with Amit. This topic that we have chosen today is very, very relevant given the rampant me centeredness we see across the world. Most of the population are busy thinking about themselves. To counter this, to look at the right perspective of this, today's topic is Karma Yoga Quantum Style. Now, looking at Karma Yoga, it is one of the four spiritual pathways as per Hinduism. And to know more about it, we will go to our esteemed guests today, Professor Amit Goswami and Dr. Valentina Onisor. Welcome to both of you. Well, going straight to Professor Goswami, you have done a lot of work on integration of spirituality and science. Of course, being one of the Hindu pathways of spirituality, Karma Yoga would have a very strong impact on your work too. So, if you could elaborate on that from the quantum point of view.
Okay, so let's first start with some definitions because the word Karma Yoga are Sanskrit words, may not be known to everyone of the audience. The word karma means action, and yoga in this context means integration. Integration of what? Integration of your professional life with your personal life and how you think. Because what you do in your personal and professional life depends very largely on the conceptual lens you put on, which is sometimes called worldview. So, what then is the message of this spiritual tradition of karma yoga? It's a practice, right? It's a practice for the professionals. Is the practice specific to Hinduism? No. Notice what the Jewish tradition says in the form of this famous quotation from Rabbi Hillel. If I am not for myself, who am I? If I am only for myself, what am I? It could not be more clear a statement of Karma Yoga. You have to be both for yourself, of course, that's priority. We are built that way. Our security is important. If you are not secure, how can you help another person? But if you just think of yourself, then what you have become is just survival oriented, a machine with animal instinctual negativity. Worse than a machine. So, what Karma Yoga does, it gives you a perspective, how to act in a broader context with both self-interest and other people's interest in mind, societal interest in mind. This is finally catching on in everywhere because we are now seeing what selfish action does to our society and environment. I'm not only talking about the war that is rampaging in Europe all of a sudden, but perpetual problems that have existed for the few decades. Global climate change, terrorism, breakdown of economics and politics. These things are everywhere and dangerous proportions. We have to know how to take care of self-interest, but not neglect community interest either. In Latin, this is called homo communis, the man as part of the community. Very important to see is that way. Quote another great man in history, spiritual man, Buddha. Buddha initially thought that for spirituality, what is important is to seek personal salvation, the very personal thing. Find God, find oneness, find nothingness in Buddhist language. So then he encounters a farmer who then asks a question. Oh, great Buddha, do you have disciples? Buddha said, yes. Said, I have heard that they take a vow of renunciation. Yes, yes, that is true. Renunciate. So tell me, oh great Buddha, how do they eat? Buddha says, oh, they go to houses until they get enough alms to cover their food. Then the farmer says, suppose I became a renunciate and your follower, and everyone in this village became a renunciate like your followers, then who will give alms to all these people? And Buddha was stuck. He realized his mistake. So renunciation is only for a few, not the objective of spirituality either. But the objective is to live in the world and also be ready to give to others who need it, who others who are doing something worthwhile. You get the picture. What does it give you? Something that you cannot buy with money, something that you cannot buy with hoarding. It gives you satisfaction. It gives you happiness in the form of expansion of consciousness. Try it, as soon as you say karma yoga, people think it's some obscure form of spiritual practice. No, karma yoga is for people who are serving the society, have a job, but they're not just focused on themselves, they're also focused on the community. Both interests. This is karma yoga. In quantum worldview, we put it this way. Karma yoga is the yoga of integrating thinking, living, and how you make your living. Thinking, living, and how you carry out your profession. This is karma yoga. Now, there's some very crucial point. And if you have read the book Bhagavad Gita, where I think karma yoga is discussed in details, I think that is the very first treatise which discusses karma yoga in such fine detail. It really is helpful if you want to engage. And as I said, everyone must. It's not even in the place of should. If you can, you must. If you can, meaning that if you are able to hear about other people's interests, not so bogged down in your personal interest, me-centeredness, then you can obviously, you are hearing me, you can. If you hear what Bhagavad Gita is saying, that will help you. If you hear what quantum science is saying, that will confirm that all is scientific, contrary to whatever people may say. This view of us that we are machine, it's a very recent view, very myopic view. It is destroying us, and these people obviously are of two faces, because when calamity comes, do they say that no, you don't help? Look at what is happening with the current world. People are pouring help. Where does that come from? Do machines help? Have you ever seen a machine run to help another machine? No, machines behave as they are programmed. Machines cannot behave in any kind of original way. And originality is the basis of helping, because you have to help in what the person needs, not what you think that the person needs, what you are programmed to think what the person needs. So mechanical doing is just not going to do it. And Bhagavad Gita says that. If you just think it is conditioned action, no, it's not. Conditioned action is not action at all. It even can create evil action. But it's definitely not action in the sense that we are talking about. Action is that which follows from silence, says the Bhagavad Gita. Action must follow from non-action. And quantum physics explains. Because in silence, we become creative. In silence, our thinking becomes thinking of various possibilities, unconscious possibilities. And from that, consciousness can choose something new that conscious thinking cannot do. In conscious thinking, we can only think about those things that are in our brain and project from that. Very limited thinking. But as soon as you're not thinking, all that we thought consciously becomes fodder for consciousness in terms of they become quantum, which means that they become waves of possibility, which means consciousness now have a big pool of possibilities to choose from. What do you rather act? What do you rather choose from? A big pool of possibilities or the little pool that your conscious brain permits you to? Does that take enormous amount of time to think? Not if you are creative, not if you are open to creativity. So creativity is the basis of Karma Yoga. This has to be understood. And the other thing that has to be understood, that usually when we are creative, we are only human, and being human means that we have some expectations. We always have to think about ourselves. Rabbi Hillel, if I'm not for myself, who am I? I have to be for myself. But always remember the second line. I also have to think of others, because otherwise I become that machine with negative instinctual behavior. Worse than machine. That I don't want to be. So therefore, this view of this expectation of having a selfish desire fulfilled, which propels us to a large extent in action that is creative. Everyone has to admit that there is that aspect. If you neglect that aspect, it becomes tougher, much tougher. But don't be confined to it. How do I do that? Bhagavad Gita, the prescription is beautiful. Now I'll say the Sanskrit words and then I'll translate. Karmani vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma phaleshu kadachana. That's the famous part of the saying. Give up the attachment to the fruit of the action. Not give up the fruit. Of course, we expect the fruit and continue to expect the fruit. But attachment to doing this stuff only because of the fruit of the action. That attachment, that my personal fruit is the reason that I do it. That's what takes people to name and fame and that orientation, money and personal power, not sharing. No, you have to be flexible. Yeah, I'm part of everybody. I'm part of the community. I'm going to get my wish too if this intention is fulfilled. But we always not be focused on it. Yes, selfishness is important, but not the focus of my doing. How am I doing? So this way of acting, which is new in many parts of the world, which have never had the benefit of such action except the spiritual traditions, which are considered somewhat esoteric. Exoteric traditions, they don't teach these things. They just say, join our flock and you'll be getting what you want. They're feeding the same me-centeredness. You join our flock, that's the only difference. If you become, once you become us, one of us, you automatically, you just get saved. You are saved. That's the only approach. You are not saved. We all know that, but then we become a believer. Somebody is promised that I'll be saved. Oh my God, let me be saved. No, it does not work that way. And all religions know it too. That's why they have an esoteric section as well. And the esoteric section says that no, it's not that simple. We have to do some things, spiritual practice. Giving is basic. Christianity, giving is basic. Serving others is basic. It's a love-centered religion. So is Islam, love-centered religion. Contrary to whatever you believe, that they're just fighters and hatred. No, not like that at all. Opposite. Love-centered religion. And love is basic to Karma Yoga. You have to love the other in order to get it. So Karma Yoga has part of it this love, and part of it is the wisdom, knowledge. You have to get that too. You have to have that knowledge that you are not really separate from the other. This separateness is an illusion. So when this knowledge that we are one, ultimately, the community self is a natural consequence of our being, then we cannot serve the community without any duress to us, because who are you serving? You're serving yourself, your expanded self. Can you be expanded like that? As I said, give and find out. As you give to somebody, you will find yourself having expansion of consciousness that we call caring. Immediately you start caring. You give and you care. You care and you give and care. They fuel each other, help each other. Beautiful process. Consequence to me, do I think that I'll be getting something out of it? Not like that. Yes, I'll be hoping to get something out of it, but I'll not be attached to it. That's Karma Yoga. Now there are many details, and Valentina has some beautiful details to tell you. All right. That's
Well,
nice.
Valentina, waiting for those beautiful details.
Thank you. Wonderful. I mean, there was so many delicacies in what you shared. I hope everybody can take this really as pearls, because we are all working. Whatever we do and whatever we think, even, we generate constantly karma. And let me start with a joke. Little John, he goes to school and he's late for the first class. And the teacher is asking what happened. And he said, oh, I had to help an old lady cross the street. And everybody was, wow, what a beautiful gesture. But the teacher asked, so why were you so late? I mean, still it's like an hour. And he said, yeah, but she didn't want to cross the street. Yeah. So because we are talking in Karma Yoga about integrated action, and also we speak about quantum spirituality, what is to shift the traditional practice of too much emphasis on just the self archetype and withdrawing from the world. Yeah. And instead we focus on any archetype, preferably the Dharma, personal Dharma archetype, and preferably wholeness. And then we speak about the quantum leaps and so on, integrating all the dichotomies, but which includes also developing a healthy, authentic ego in quantum spirituality. Yeah. Of course, you know that the negative emotions don't go away, but this ego is not using these negative emotions for his own benefit. Yeah. It's not using manipulation, displaying tantrums and competitiveness and so on. Not an authentic personality we need this kind of personality to transform. Yeah. And then, of course, we speak about transformation in stages in quantum spirituality. And Karma Yoga is a wonderful, wonderful tool. Also, a translation would be the yoga of deep and complete fusion with the divine through any integrated and detached action. Now, of course, it's not easy to understand what means detached action, because first you need to be attached to something before being detached. Even in a couple relationship, you don't speak about detached and unconditional love before, first of all, you go through all these stages. Also, there is a beautiful key that I found in the esoteric yoga tradition that truly changed and continues to change my life. It is also practiced on holy Mount Athos by the monks who live there, for example. I'll tell you a few words. It's called consecration. So Karma Yoga, again, is different by the other forms of yoga. And remember that the word yoga in the quantum significance is about integration. Yeah, it's unity and integration. These are the meanings of the word yoga. But so in Karma Yoga, it's not about practicing certain techniques, but integrating in a specific way all these altruistic actions with the honest motivation to really help others. Yeah, and again, the key is consecration. And what means consecration is, if you want, the gesture to which a human being is offering all the fruits, all the consequences of an action, either to God or to Shiva or to a great cosmic power. And this gesture has to be done always before starting a respective action. Even you can consecrate a space before keeping, I don't know, a conference or a certain procedure or any beneficent activities that you want to do. For example, in the morning, we practice the intent. Yeah, so this is part of the way we practice the intent. So as I said, even in the Mount Athos, Greece, which is a very spiritual place, they explained it exactly in this way. And this is the key to Karma Yoga, actually. So what we do when we do such a consecration actually is evoking or calling an archetype or a divine attribute to manifest in our life. Yeah, we invite them. Yeah, and the experience is truly direct. It can also set you up immediately in a state of flow. Whether we speak of cooking a delicious meal or writing your thesis or preparing to meet your lover even. And even more, you can do this consecration together with your lover. Again, it's about inviting something higher than the way we usually function on the ego level, which is a low level of energy. So when we get a taste of this, it's very interesting because you are tapping in the space of intuitions so much easier. And you are aware of these resonances which are evoked. And also, when you're not in that state, you know very well when you're not really ready to do a certain action, especially if it's a very special action. You better stay and prepare yourself before engaging in that when it's possible. So it's about knowing when an action is or not integrated in God's will. What means that? In movement, of course, in resonance with the movement of consciousness. Yeah. Everybody wants that once you start walking on any path of transformation. So it's like an inner prayer that again, it's kind of as you are offering all the fruits of the action to a certain divine aspect. And then what you do, even during the action, the idea is to pay attention to maintain this connection. Yeah, and it's also a symbolic act, if you want, and the level of efficiency is given by the honesty of our intent, and also, of course, of where you are, of your dharma, of everything. So it's also like a prayer from your heart, where you are also offering yourself to God, so that you invite again the divine to embody. You are embodying the divine, and you're inviting at least this divine attribute to act through you. For example, you want to do some procedures of healing, Reiki, or I don't know. So you're opening in this way towards the universe, towards the divine, asking to become the channel of manifesting, to embody the divine. And then you will see it's so interesting. It's as if suddenly you know much more than you used to know. So I tell you from experience I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of times I had these experiences, even when I'm starting an action, which, okay, I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm not suited because I'm not a computer person, or I don't know. Many times I just don't know. I don't have a qualification in a certain area. But if I'm working, especially in a project that is very much in line with the movement of consciousness, whether it's an ashram, whether it's what we do with our university, transformative university. So I'm just putting myself there, back straight. I'm doing this gesture of consecration, and then I'm ready for a day where so many other qualities are awakening in me. And actually, there's this secret that when you do karma yoga, it's not just that you, if you manage to really do it well, to prevent creating a new karma, but at the same time, there's also a very special effect of burning karma, negative karma. So because again, it's a kind of sacrifice there in place, right? So even when you wash a toilet, or you're cleaning the house, or you do something that you wouldn't necessarily choose it to do, but if you do it with the right attitude, you may perceive this deeply purifying effect, and eventually you will see like you don't feel exhausted. You feel that you tap into something that is supporting you, especially, okay, if it's just a toilet, not necessarily, but even then, you can still feel a state of happiness increasing. But if it's, again, you're part of a wonderful project, which is in line with the movement of consciousness, I said, the effects can be amazing. Like even if you worked a whole day or a whole month for something, eventually what remains in you, it's a state of gratitude and happiness. And again, the source of this desire to work doesn't have to be the egoism, it has to be love, which will increase every minute when you will do something for the others or for God in this way with all your heart and without asking something in return as much. I mean, there again, as Amit says, so obviously it's not that you will not, like in reality, there is, of course, some expectation is there, and at least to have harmony there in what you're doing in your team. But still, you're also again evoking this great principle, which is a transformative principle, and you will see that there are not dead moments. There's not that you waste time. You're not getting bored. Then there's not useless action. If you understand this and you practice, each moment where you act actually can be used for our growth. Yeah, and of course we also learn how to give, and realizing at the same time that. Whatever you are giving to others, you're also giving to yourself in every single way. Also, it brings a great bond in a group, and even more than just initiating a meditation together. Again, while awakening various other qualities such as altruism, humbleness, and so on.
Thank you, Valentina. Well, now back to Professor Goswami for an usual wrap up and your further comments on this.
Okay. So the big challenge, of course, that how do we bring these archetypes that Valentina mentioned, God's attributes, attribute of that consciousness as the ground of being, that is really the crucial aspects of getting satisfaction out of your work. How do we bring that in a job that I'm doing? A job that is just to earn my livelihood and so that I can buy a little more than livelihood, some entertainment as well. That's the definition. That's the way we think of a job, even a professional job. But this is not the way that we define professions initially, or even now. Just the name will give away the actual intention of the profession, and it's connected with the archetype. It's very clear for professions like healing, health, that originate from the word wholeness. So obviously, the idea is to bring the archetype of wholeness in the practice of a healer, doctor, mental or physical. But it's not so obvious in other cases. For example, business people. That is a very big segment of professionals. Now, how do you justify? Isn't business just about the bottom line, profit? And that's always about the person, the board of directors, or what have you. How do you bring this community consciousness in businesses? Why should you? What is the archetype? Well, there is an archetype. There is an archetype, and if we recognize that businesses will only be better. The archetype is called abundance. I'll give you a quick example what the difference is. You see how today wealth has become so concentrated, just less than 1% usually controls the wealth of throughout the whole earth. Not only America or Russia or England or European countries, it's true of India as well. Underdeveloped countries, India, Brazil, Mexico, they all suffer from this disease. Very unstable situation, of course. Can billionaires say, well, we are very happy people? If they were happy people, why do they desire for even more? $1 billion, can you imagine? It's a lot of money. One person can never spend that much money, however frivolously they spend. Why do they want more? Because the wealth does not satisfy. Wealth never makes you feel that you have enough. There's always somebody else who is wealthier than you are. Or you want to take the precaution. I'm at the top, I want to remain at the top. Abundance, on the other hand, can be obtained even if you have nothing. Not very much, just enough to survive. There's a story of a Brahmin priest, although this is an ideal story, one does not expect to be like this. But his wife was taking a bath in the same place as the queen of the place. These are olden days. So queen became curious. Why does this woman look so happy, although she has very ordinary clothes and seems like an ordinary person? So she went and asked the woman, what makes you so happy? Because the queen obviously is not very happy. Problems, problems, problems. So the person says, why shouldn't I be happy? I have a house, a husband, and satisfaction. So queen is still passive. So, well, what do you eat, for example? It says, well, see, we have a tamarind tree, and this tamarind tree gives us fruit which, if you cook with a little bit of sugar, sweet, then it becomes delicious. And my husband likes it. So we eat that, and that's our food. We are very happy. So it does not take you much to be happy and satisfied. If you are tuned to abundance, if you have the sense of abundance, it does not make any difference. You don't want any more. How do you get that though? So getting it is the job of Karma Yoga. You do business where you seek abundance, not just wealth. That's Karma Yoga. How do you get the essence of work? Work that gives you satisfaction. Work itself that gives you happiness. Then you don't have to look for happiness in a car, in a big house that you don't use, in acquiring this, that, possessions that you think will give you happiness. How long can you be happy with a car? Have you noticed you buy a new car? How long do you get excited? You buy a new house? How long? Gets boring in no time because you are partly your brain, and brain saturate very quickly, very quickly. So what's the mystery? Mystery is not to identify happiness with possessions, not to identify happiness with object. And when you are a little bit wiser, not to even identify happiness with yourself, your personal self, with your me. Instead, realize that the happiness lies in the expansion of me, take care of others. After you have take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself and start taking care of others, then again the opposite. You'll feel sorry for yourself because you're constantly needing to pay attention to yourself as well. So no question. Maslow called this a hierarchy of needs. So we have to satisfy our survival need first and then attend to our. Can one do this in just professionals, or can one expand this into just ordinary, what we call assembly line labor? You know, I bought a car in the 1980s because of the hype. So this car was a Chrysler. It's supposed to be a good car. I took it home and it had all kinds of problems. Even the windshield leaked water when it rained heavily. And I take it to the garage and they cannot fix it. I fix it, but again it becomes something else crops up. And you know what changed this business environment in the world? The Japanese manufacturer. They discovered something. And they also discovered the slogan, quality is job one. They discovered that if people work in the assembly line but not in the traditional way, doing a piecemeal of work that does not give them satisfaction, instead, they are aware of the whole job and they are involved with the whole job, they do a much better job. Everybody becomes satisfied with the finished product that they have personally been responsible for. This is the thing. We have to get that sense of accomplishment. Can I get a sense of accomplishment at purely service job? Yes, I can. If I can create an environment or I work within an environment which allows me to identify with my accomplishment. The reason that so many people are not satisfied with their jobs is because jobs don't allow them to do that. The satisfaction goes only to a few. This is the bad way of doing it, as the Japanese showed us in the 1980s. The right way of doing it is to give every employee, doesn't matter if it's the assembly line or the high echelons, everybody should get satisfaction out of their work. And how to guarantee it? Always find the archetype and let everybody serve the archetype. Every profession has archetype. Business people abundance, political people power, lawyers of course justice, scientists serve the archetype of truth. Wholeness I have already mentioned. Artists, musicians, they serve the archetype of beauty. Clergy people, they serve the archetype of goodness. Every profession in the world has an archetype associated with it. Your job is to find out the archetype that you love, that you personally want to explore. And then satisfaction will come. And then it will become obvious that one should integrate thinking, living, and livelihood. Then karma yoga will not seem to be something of a theory that somebody wants you to examine. It will become a life that you are living. Karma yoga is for living. It's a living yoga. It's for those people who practice their spirituality, their personal growth in the way they live. Thank you.
That's wonderful. This last summing up is probably one of the best renditions of how business people, how people who are working in businesses look at life in general and how they would like to live it. Thank you so much, Professor Goswami, and thank you, Dr. Onisor, for this valuable session. I hope our viewers also like it so much, and more importantly, not just liking, but use it in their lives and make improvements. Thank you so much again.